Welcome to the show. You are one-on-one with Wes the Sports Guy here on YouTube and online all the time at westhesportsguy.com as well. Make sure you subscribe and hit that Liberty Bell button to the side of the page on YouTube if you want to get all the latest updates of one-on-one with yours truly. And also be sure to go to Facebook and Instagram as well and follow me and all of the daily action that happens in the world of sports and get my opinion and reaction to it as well every single time at those fine institutions, you could say. But anyway, social media has having its problems lately. But anyway, I'm glad you're here. Glad to have you. Let's get right into it. Starting off, the top story is a little bit of a light note this week as we go into the NFL with Jalen Ramsey, cornerback of the Jacksonville Jaguars, has quite a few opinions on a lot of NFL quarterbacks that are currently playing in the NFL. As you can see that I have shared for you the screenshot of just a little bit of what he has said about some quarterbacks in the NFL with an interview with GQ magazine this last week. Going down the list real quick, Josh Allen, rookie quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, saying, quote, he's trash, end quote. Baker Mayfield, the number one overall pick of the Cleveland Browns, gets how he was the top pick in the draft. Lamar Jackson, a first-round pick of the Baltimore Ravens, quote, he's going to do a good job. Whereas the established quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens, Joe Flacco, he basically says he sucks. Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady both get the doesn't suck quote out of both of those elite quarterbacks playing in the NFL. Tyrod Taylor, the Cleveland Browns, underrated in Jalen Ramsey's opinion. Marcus Mariota, that he plays against in the same division with the Tennessee Titans, is a good game manager. Jimmy Garoppolo of the 49ers, guess he's good. Of course, he's also elaborated a little bit more than that on Garoppolo, saying that he's not all that great, which you could agree with that opinion because he's only played in 6.5 games really in the NFL. Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans, he says that he will be an MVP, as is Carson Wentz. According to Jalen Ramsey of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Jared Goff is average to above average for the Los Angeles Rams. Dak Prescott, he's okay. Kirk Cousins, he's a winner, which, yeah, he's won some games. He hasn't won a playoff game yet in his NFL career with the Washington Redskins. Now he is the highest paid quarterback in the NFL with the Minnesota Vikings. Russell Wilson, quote, good. Ben Roethlisberger, I think, is the funniest one of all. Decent at best, according to Jalen Ramsey. Eli Manning, Odell makes him, which is another funny statement in and of itself. Blake Bortles, his current teammate and quarterback of the Jaguars. Blake, do what he gotta do. End quote. Nick Foles, good enough to win a Super Bowl, which is not wrong. He did win a Super Bowl last year with the Philadelphia Eagles, being the backup for them. Drew Brees, quote, really good. Andrew Luck don't think he's good, to quote Jalen Ramsey. Matthew Stafford, he's straight. Phillip Rivers, pretty good. Ryan Tannehill, haven't heard good things. And Matt Ryan of the Atlanta Falcons is overrated. So quite a few opinions there for Jalen Ramsey. Of course, he is arguably one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. I'm not going to go out and say he is the best right now, but he is certainly in my top 5, if not top 3 as it stands, of elite cornerbacks in this league. And he's only been around for 2 seasons now for the Jaguars, but he's part of an elite defense for them and a team that probably will be on the rise and competing for possible Super Bowl contention just on the defense alone. But on the offensive side, they are solid. They just need to keep working in with Leonard Fournette as their running back. But I will continue on with the NFL at a later date as we get closer and closer to the regular season debut of this 2018 season. I will have a preview for you at westhesportsguy.com and also have a brief preview for you right here on this show of One-on-One with yours truly. Make sure you subscribe and hit that Liberty Bell button in advance. Going into the next segment that has a rapid fire feel to it, just with a different ring. Starting off the Ring of Fire segment, the Los Angeles Clippers and the NBA decided to let go of their current TV analyst, Bruce Bowen, based off of his comments about Kawhi Leonard after he was traded from the San Antonio Spurs to the Toronto Raptors. Now, this is a bit confusing because Bruce Bowen is an analyst. He's supposed to give his analytic opinion on different players, including players on the current team. Now, it seems like the Los Angeles Clippers think they might have a chance of signing Kawhi Leonard when he becomes a free agent next year, but there really isn't much indication that he would even consider playing for the Clippers, although there have been sources telling Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN that he would consider signing with either the Lakers or the Clippers, since they both play in Los Angeles, go figure. But that wasn't on the mind of Bruce Bowen when he made those comments about Kawhi Leonard, and they weren't really critical in nature of just more confusion than anything, because Bruce Bowen, being an established all-NBA defender in his heyday, especially with the San Antonio Spurs, had an opinion, and he decided to give it about Kawhi, and it's just more confusion than anything. It wasn't really critical. It was analyzing the situation and giving his opinion about it. Now, the Clippers letting him go kind of sets a weird precedent going forward about the organization, and it's not as bad as it was under Donald Sterling, who was the former owner. Now Steve Ballmer's the owner, but apparently things are run a little bit differently there in La La Land with the Cubs of the Clippers, and the fact that they're trying to make it seem like players want to play there, but after the way you traded off Blake Griffin after signing him this past season, and now you're letting Bruce Bowen go, who is a well-respected former NBA player and not a bad analyst by any stretch of the imagination, after only one season, it's going to get a little dicey there with the Clippers, but we'll see how it plays out this season with the on-court talent, not so much off the court. Carmelo Anthony, it's become official. He is signed with the Houston Rockets at a one-year deal at about $2.5 million. He's still going to get paid his full salary from his previous contract with the New York Knicks, but obviously he was traded from the Oklahoma City Thunder to the Atlanta Hawks, who ended up letting him go in a three-way trade about a month ago. That officially became a done deal with him leaving the Hawks and now signing with the Rockets. Does this make the Houston Rockets any better than they were last year? I think they're just as good. Are they good enough to win 50-plus games? Sure, absolutely. It's the Western Conference. They're still one of the better teams in it, although it's going to get a lot more cramped with the way a lot of teams have improved, namely, of course, LeBron James coming to the Lakers and other moves that teams have made as well in that conference. But again, Carmelo Anthony's not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. He is definitely past the twilight of his career, but him coming to the Houston Rockets doesn't really make them an elite team by any stretch. If they would have gotten Melo 5 years ago, that would have been a different conversation, because then eventually they would have gotten Chris Paul along with James Harden, and things could have ended up being a little bit different for them. As it stands right now, Houston is still a good team with hardly any defense, though, so that is another thing to watch out for with the Rockets. And finally, to end the Ring of Fire segment, Jose Urena of the, I almost said Florida, they are now the Miami Marlins, was suspended 6 games. Essentially, he's going to miss one start for his role in a first pitch beating of Ronald Acuna, the most likely National League Rookie of the Year for the Atlanta Braves, in a game a few days ago. It was unwarranted, unnecessary. Yes, he pitches inside a lot. Yes, he does lead the National League in hit batsmen this season. He was also one of the league leaders last year with hit batsmen. And it's really no surprise that Major League Baseball came down on this pretty hard and pretty fast, I might say. It only took him one day to hand down the suspension. But again, the suspension really doesn't mean much. It's only going to miss one start for Urena, and he's most likely going to serve that suspension coming up when they play the Braves again, because as you might expect, the Braves are going to retaliate at some point by throwing a little, you could say, a hip check to Urena if he decides to bat in that series with the Braves. But again, time will tell. That's how baseball handles itself, and that's what it will do going forward. Time for the segment that would have never hired Omarosa in the first place. Do you remember?
You remember?
Do you remember when Barry Bonds was playing Major League Baseball? Well, I do, and I'm sure you do as well. But he's kind of back in the forefront again, mainly because the San Francisco Giants decided to retire his number finally after many years of not playing. And there were also a few opportunities there where he might have tried to make a comeback, but nobody was going to touch him with 2 baseball bats, let alone 1. But I digress. Nonetheless, Barry Bonds finally had his number retired by the San Francisco Giants this week, and Willie Mays, his godfather, was in attendance for that ceremony at AT&T Park in San Francisco. It was a pleasant ceremony. Obviously, the fans of the Giants love Barry Bonds and adore him, and that is within their rights because he hit lots of home runs, and they got to a World Series appearance with him in 2002. Now, Willie Mays made a little bit of noise with the press in saying that Barry Bonds and the Hall of Fame, to, quote, vote this guy in even though there's a lot of circumstances surrounding, a Balco investigation. The federal government was coming after Barry Bonds as well for allegedly lying to a grand jury. That case went nowhere, and the federal government ended up dropping the case. But nonetheless, circumstantial evidence is definitely there that Barry Bonds most likely did some kind of enhancement with himself in performance-enhancing drugs. Obviously, I'm voicing my opinion on this based off of the circumstantial evidence. I don't have any proof of it, but nonetheless, you can make up your own mind about Barry Bonds, whether or not he does belong or doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. I am of the fact that I don't believe he belongs in the Hall of Fame, yet there are people that are continuing to vote for him, and he's getting steadily increased percentage in votes these last few years since he's been on the ballot for the Hall of Fame. Willie Mays is entitled to his opinion as well, and that he is his godfather, as you would expect him to say something like that about his godson and Barry Bonds. I just have to wonder, though, if he eventually does get in, there has to be something of note with Barry Bonds and the fact that he allegedly did this when he was already a first ballot Hall of Famer to begin with 500 home runs and 500 steals, being the only guy ever to do that in baseball history. And then supposedly, according to a timeline of when he might have been starting with performance-enhancing drugs, he started doing that after that fact, when he didn't need to do it. Same thing can be said with Roger Clemens and the fact that he didn't have to do it either. He was already a first-ballot Hall of Famer to begin with. That's what makes this even more maddening to think that these guys still did it when they didn't need to do it. They were already Hall of Famers to begin with, and yet they did it anyway. Fame, fortune, money is a very cancerous thing, especially in the world of sports. Barry Bonds is no different. I'm sure that's one of the reasons why he did it. And of course, we can all excuse the Andy Pettitte excuse, saying he wanted to do it for his teammates to get back on the field and help them win. Cry me a river, Andy. You're still not getting in the Hall of Fame for that excuse, based off of your accolades with New York Yankees and Houston Astros in your major league career. Barry Bonds should not be in the Hall of Fame. Willie Mays is a class act. He's the say hey kid. But I'm sorry, I disagree. Barry Bonds is not a Hall of Famer in my book. Moving on to the feel-good story of the week, baseball related, we're going to go to a White Sox and Tigers game in Major League Baseball with the interaction of two lovely, lovely young men.
In the air, left field, that's slicing. And it will go down in history as nothing. But it's not nothing to him. No, very important. Keepsake forever. Now he wants another one. That's great. Oh, how about that? How nice is that? When an adult catches a foul ball, you say give it to the kid. But when a kid catches it, gives it to a younger kid, that'll melt your heart. Yeah. There he is. How great is that? I'm not crying, you're crying. Great moment. 1-2. Fouled off. And he shakes his hand. Look at that. When you sour on humanity, even for a moment, please think of that.
Now, as you can see in that video, the announcer says it perfectly. When you sour on humanity, even for just a moment, think of that and realize that we are still in good hands, not just for the current generation, but all future generations as well. If we can see that happening on a daily basis, it makes us feel a lot better about ourselves and the fact that everything will eventually work itself out, even though it doesn't appear that way on a daily basis. But when things like that are happening, and they do get caught on camera, thankfully, we can all feel just a little bit better about ourselves and the state of the human race. Thank you for tuning in this week. I will see you next week for episode 24 right here on YouTube. Subscribe, hit that Liberty Bell button for the next episode. I will come at you next week. 'Cause I'm
I've been down so long that my crown and thorn is drifting.